Hello everyone. Today I will tell you about a very tragic case involving a young woman who lived a kind, sincere, and friendly life and was greatly loved by everyone, but had her life cruelly taken by cold-blooded murderers. At the beginning of the 21st century, South Korea's tourism industry experienced rapid growth, leading to the establishment of numerous large and small currency exchange shops on streets and in central areas to serve the currency exchange needs of both domestic and international tourists. In Donggan District, Anyang City, there was also a currency exchange shop that emerged. Given the shop's location in a bustling area, business was generally quite favorable. However, in 2007, a particularly serious crime occurred there. Not only was the shop robbed of a huge amount of cash, but a female employee also met a tragic end. At 10:50 a.m., the Anyang City Police received a report of the crime. The report came from the shop owner, who stated that when he arrived at the shop, he found his employee had been killed. The cash in the safe, about 10 million won, was also stolen. The police quickly arrived at the scene and sealed off the shop. At the crime scene, the victim was found gagged with her hands and feet bound tightly. There was a 10 centimeters long wound under her right ear, caused by a sharp fruit knife that severed her carotid artery, leading to death from excessive blood loss. The estimated time of death was around 9 a.m. that day. Clearly, the currency exchange shop was located in a central area, surrounded by numerous shops and bustling with people. Despite this, the perpetrator acted violently and managed to escape easily, indicating a well-planned operation. No traces of the weapon or other crucial clues were left at the scene. According to reports, besides the murder, the shop also suffered significant losses, with approximately 1.85 billion won in cash stolen. From the information provided by the shop owner, the victim was named Rim-A, 25 years old, and had been working there since graduating from college. She was an honest and diligent person, always arriving at the shop early every day, and was greatly trusted by the owner. When the police inquired about Rim-A's usual work routine, the owner confirmed that she did not have any conflicts with anyone. He mentioned that Rim-A was a very lively and cheerful girl, with excellent relationships with her colleagues. Customers who came to the shop were very satisfied with her service, with some even specifically requesting to be served by Rim-A. Based on the owner's statements, the police began to suspect whether a colleague might have been envious of Rim-A and had intentions to eliminate her. With this hypothesis, the police team investigated the information from the shop's employees, including a female employee named Ga-in. According to Ga-in, she and the victim Rim-A were of the same age and very close. They shared everything and hung out together on their days off. On the day of the incident, Ga-in was not at work, but was resting at home and woke up very late. Ga-in's family also confirmed this and provided sufficient evidence that she was not at the shop at the time. As a result, suspicion against Ga-in was cleared. The investigation hit a dead end. However, unexpectedly, Ga-in approached the police and provided an important clue. She revealed that for the past 6 months, a man named Park Yoo-san had been persistently pursuing Rim-A. He frequently sent flowers and gifts to the shop, but it was a one-sided affection, as Rim-A had confided to Ga-in that she did not like Park because he was financially unstable and had an insecure job. Despite Rim-A's repeated and direct rejections, Park stubbornly refused to give up. Sometimes, after work, Park would secretly follow Rim-A home. It wasn't until Rim-A lied and said she was dating someone better than Park that he finally stopped. After that, they parted ways unhappily, and Park Yoo-san no longer visited the shop. Upon receiving this new lead, the police immediately summoned Park Yoo-san and began investigating him. In response to the police's questions, Park candidly admitted that he genuinely liked Rim-A and had pursued her for a long time. However, when Rim-A grew indifferent and he realized his chances were slim due to her beauty, kindness, and numerous admirers, he became disheartened and stopped bothering her. He even sent his heartfelt blessings to Rim-A. When he learned of Rim-A's murder, Park was deeply saddened. He never expected their last meeting would be a final farewell. Park also added that despite his less than wealthy background, he would never do anything to harm anyone. Park Yoo-san's statements left the police both convinced and skeptical. Furthermore, Park could not provide any evidence proving his absence from the scene on the day of the incident. Consequently, Park remained a suspect. Soon after, Rime's colleagues discovered a new clue. They found a ballpoint pen on the shop's counter and managed to extract a fingerprint. Upon comparison, this fingerprint did not match any of the shop's employees. If the fingerprint had matched Park's, it could have proven he was at the shop on the day of the incident. However, the comparison results showed that the fingerprint did not belong to Park. As the investigation once again lost direction, the shop owner unexpectedly came to the police station with a significant lead. He recalled that on the day Rime was murdered, a very strange and coincidental event had occurred. Around 8 a.m. that day, he planned to drive to work, but discovered that the front right tire of his car was flat as soon as he left the house. Notably, the night before, he had checked all 4 tires, a habit he had maintained for years. Therefore, he was certain that the tire was in good condition at that time. He went upstairs and did not drive out anymore. So why did the tire malfunction the very next morning? He carefully inspected it again, but found no nails or serious issues. In a rush to get to work, he called a mechanic from the repair shop to check it. The result was that someone had intentionally punctured his tire. This caused him to leave the house later than usual, and he arrived at the shop at 10:50 a.m., just as Rime had passed away in a pool of blood. Initially, he thought the tire incident might have been a prank by someone trying to inconvenience him. But as he connected the events, he felt increasingly uneasy. Ultimately, he decided to inform the police, as it might be related to Rime's death. Upon learning of this information from the shop owner, the police concluded that this was a meticulously planned robbery and murder. The perpetrators had likely prepared for many days, from the execution of the crime, the time of escape, to the method of delaying the shop owner's arrival, all meticulously coordinated to perfection. The police reviewed the surveillance footage from the currency exchange shop on the day of the incident. They identified a young man wearing a helmet entering the shop. However, due to blind spots in the camera coverage, the man's face could not be identified. Clearly, the perpetrators had observed and understood the camera's blind spots in the shop. Although the suspect's face was not captured, a crucial clue was left behind: a fingerprint extracted from a ballpoint pen found at the scene. The police entered this fingerprint into the criminal database for comparison. The results showed that the fingerprint matched a man named Jin Soo-young, 45 years old. According to records, Jin was not a reputable person. He had a previous conviction for causing public disturbances and brawling. Although he was only briefly detained and not severely punished, his fingerprint remained in the police database. Thus, the identity of the man wearing the helmet was confirmed as Jin Soo-young. Besides Jin, 2 other individuals had also entered the shop that day. It appeared they were also aware of the camera's blind spots, as there were no clear shots of their faces from the time they entered the shop until they fled. Although their identities and descriptions were not yet determined, it was certain that they were connected to Jin. In addition to the currency exchange shop, there were surveillance cameras around the shop owner's residence. The police reviewed these cameras and found useful evidence. At 8:30 a.m., Jin, wearing the helmet, entered the shop. Shortly after, 2 other men wearing baseball caps also entered. About an hour later, at 9:30 a.m., all 3 left together, with one of them carrying a large, full bag. They quickly boarded a waiting taxi and departed. The security camera under the shop owner's building also captured footage of a man sneaking around the owner's house around 8 a.m. that day. He approached a vehicle and used a tool to puncture the tire. The shop owner quickly recognized this as his own vehicle. With solid evidence in hand, the police issued arrest warrants for the 3 main suspects, the person who punctured the tire, and the taxi driver. By checking additional street surveillance cameras, the police swiftly determined the group's direction of travel after the crime. The trio led by Jin Soo-young had left South Korea and traveled to the Philippines. To apprehend the suspects, South Korean authorities immediately contacted the Philippine police, hoping to capture Jin and his accomplices. Although the 3 direct suspects had escaped, the 2 individuals involved in the tire puncturing and the taxi driver were still in South Korea. Based on the gathered clues, the police quickly identified and arrested the person who punctured the tire. This individual, named Choi Seo, 44 years old, was a loan shark. He did not have much money himself, but borrowed at low interest rates from others, and then lent it out at higher rates to make a profit. After his arrest, Choi quickly confessed to his involvement. He admitted that Jin had imposed an extremely heavy debt on him, which drove him to participate in the crime. Choi further revealed that 3 months before the incident, Jin had threatened him, stating that if he didn't repay the debt, his family would be affected. At that time, Choi had no money. Seeing Choi's inability to repay the debt, Jin took the opportunity to offer a solution. Jin demanded that Choi monitor the owner of the Anyang currency exchange shop, record his working hours and vehicle number, and report back in detail. In return, the previous debt would be considered settled. Desperate, Choi immediately accepted Jin's demand without hesitation. In the following days, Choi began to monitor every move of the currency exchange shop owner and reported back to Jin. He thought everything was over, but unexpectedly, a day before the crime took place, Jin approached him with one final request. On the day of the incident, before the shop owner left his house, Choi was to puncture the owner's tire. According to Choi, he never wanted to participate in the crime. He knew very well that Jin was not a good person and that Jin was exploiting him to commit a crime. However, due to his debt and repeated threats from Jin, he had no choice but to comply with this last request. Choi also emphasized that he had no knowledge of the death of the currency exchange shop employee, Rim A. Initially, the plan was only to steal some cash from the shop, not to commit murder. Choi was only responsible for puncturing the tire to delay the shop owner, and he was not involved in any other part of the crime. Choi told the police that he was also a victim and never expected the situation would result in a murder. Based on the vehicle's license plate, the police also identified the taxi driver who helped the 3 suspects escape from the crime scene. This person was Jin Se-bin, 41 years old, the biological brother of the leader Jin Soo-young, who worked as a taxi driver. On the day of the incident, he was tasked with keeping watch outside the shop. After the 3 individuals inside stole the money, he was supposed to drive them to the airport. Regarding the death of Rima, Jin Se-bin firmly claimed he knew nothing about it and was not involved. When the police continued to question him about the identities of the 2 remaining murder suspects, Jin Se-bin admitted he knew them. According to his testimony, the 2 suspects were Kim Chun-hee, 42 years old, and Kim Seong-kun, 39 years old. They were close friends of Jin Soo-young, essentially his combat partners. Whenever Jin had a new scheme for making money, he would involve these 2, whom he trusted greatly. Originally, Jin did not intend to rob this currency exchange shop because it was located in a busy area, making it easy to get caught. However, he later discovered that the shop had many blind spots in its surveillance camera system. Additionally, during operating hours, there was typically only one female employee present. Thus, by exploiting this time gap to control the employee, the chances of a successful robbery were high. Jin Se-bin stated that the robbery was planned by the trio, Jin Soo-young, Kim Chun-hee, and Kim Seong-kun. First, Jin Soo-young would enter the shop and pretend to conduct a transaction. Then Kim Chun-hee and Kim Seong-kun would seize the opportunity to carry out the robbery if the situation was safe. However, after successfully obtaining the money, they unexpectedly killed the shop employee, Rim A. This was likely an unplanned development. 2 days after the incident, Rim A's family held a funeral for their daughter. After the funeral, the case was brought to trial at the Seoul High Court. At the trial, Choi Seo and Jin Se-bin were charged with robbery and murder. Both maintained their innocence, arguing that they were merely following Jin Soo-young's orders and had no involvement in the robbery at the currency exchange shop, let alone the murder. After reviewing the evidence and the circumstances, the Seoul High Court concluded that Jin Se-bin was acquitted of the murder charge, but was sentenced to 4 years in prison for his indirect involvement in the robbery of the Anyang currency exchange shop. Choi Seo, given that he was coerced into participating, was acquitted. However, after the trial, Jin Se-bin did not accept the verdict and appealed the decision. A year later, in August 2008, the Seoul High Court reopened the case. In court, Jin Se-bin earnestly defended himself, claiming that he was merely dragged into the scheme without fully understanding the situation. He argued that he did not participate in the robbery or murder, and therefore should not be punished so severely. After consideration, the court ultimately acquitted Jin Se-bin. The verdict immediately sparked public discontent. Most people felt that, although neither defendant directly committed the crime, they still aided the murderers and helped them escape. Facing public pressure, the police could only respond by stating that they would do their utmost to bring the fugitive gang members Jin Soo-young, Kim Chun-hee, and Kim Seong-kun to justice. However, the situation was not as favorable as hoped. After fleeing to the Philippines with the stolen money, the three suspects changed their identities and started new lives, leaving the case at a dead end. For many years, the investigation yielded no new leads. 4 years later, in December 2011, Philippine police finally tracked down Kim Seong-kun and arrested him. A year later, Kim Chun-hee was also captured but committed suicide in a Philippine prison after just 3 days. Upon learning that his accomplices had been arrested, the mastermind Jin Soo-yong quickly fled to Thailand in an attempt to evade capture. However, he was apprehended by Thai police in November 2012 while using a fake passport. In October 2013, Jin Soo-yong was extradited back to South Korea. 2 years later, Kim Seong-kun was also extradited. Under intense police interrogation, Jin eventually confessed to his crimes. He admitted that he was the mastermind behind the robbery of the currency exchange shop. He revealed that at the beginning of 2007, he began targeting the Anyang currency exchange shop. Realizing he could not carry out the plan alone, he quickly disclosed the plan too and recruited his close associates Kim Seong-kun and Kim Chun-hee. To ensure the crime went smoothly, they also recruited others, including Jin's younger brother and Choi Seo, who was coerced into participating due to debt. According to the pre-established plan, Jin's brother was assigned to watch outside the shop, while Jin himself would enter and pretend to exchange Japanese yen to distract the female employee. Kim Seong-kun and Kim Chun-hee would then act according to the situation and join in the robbery. Regarding the murder of the employee, Rim-ae, Jin firmly denied any intention or participation in the killing. He explained that as they were preparing to leave after successfully robbing the shop, Kim Chun-hee suddenly decided to kill the employee to avoid any risk. Kim Chun-hee then drew a fruit knife and killed the victim without further discussion. To verify the testimony, the police interrogated Kim Seong-kun, who also shifted the blame to the deceased Kim Chun-hee, claiming he was merely an accomplice. However, the fatal wound on the victim was a deep stab wound on the lower right side of her ear, which would require the attacker to use their left hand. Coincidentally, Kim Seong-kun was left-handed. Based on this evidence and Jin Soo-yong's testimony, the police concluded that Kim Seong-kun was likely the direct perpetrator of the murder. In 2017, the trial for the robbery and murder of the currency exchange shop employee officially resumed in Busan. The judge ruled that while it was difficult to prove Jin Soo-yong had premeditated murder, he was convicted of 25 years for the robbery. As for Kim Seong-kun, he continued to blame Kim Chun-hee. To convict him of murder, it needed to be proven that he had intended to kill the employee. During the trial, a judge suddenly stood up and stated that in cases of robbery leading to murder, intent was irrelevant. The key was the situation at the crime scene and the weapon used by the perpetrator. Clearly, Kim Seong-kun, being left-handed, was responsible for the stabbing on the victim's right ear. Unable to refute this accusation, Kim Seong-kun had no choice but to concede. Ultimately, Kim Seong-kun was sentenced to life imprisonment with no possibility of appeal for the crimes of robbery and murder. It took a decade for the complex case in Anyang to come to light, but sadly, the kind and sincere Rim-ae could never return. The currency exchange shop had long since closed, and the local community rarely spoke of the tragic events, yet the wounds remained unhealed for her grieving parents. Human greed led to suffering, turning lives into haunted shadows trapped in darkness. What do you think about this case?